Good morning, Commissioner. Thanks for being with us today.
Hello, sir.
I want to thank you for your department's great involvement with our local communities in the flood responses that we've had this last year, but in several years running now, unfortunately, and more recently in the village of Ovid with the devastating community fire they had there, and the assistance that DOT provided to the locals there. It's a great department to work with from my perspective, and your regional director in Hornell, Brian Kelly, is one of my favorites, so just a shout out to him
Thank
for
you,
that.
sir.
On the $800 million for the capital plan, basically it's an inflation, to cover inflation, is that what it's basically for?
It's to help restore our purchasing power, yes.
Over what period of time is that $800 million?
It's for the remaining period of the existing capital plan, so for the next 2 years.
Okay. And what percentage does that come out to, that $800 million?
Of the overall capital plan?
Yeah, for the next 2 years. If it's covered in 2 years, what is it related to inflation at all?
I went to
or
law
just-
school, not math, but there was no math requirement. But I think that the bottom line is we're executing on $34 billion. So it's a 800. The capital plan for 5 years was set at 33.1. This is an increase of an additional billion.
Okay. Well, I think that's important and needed. How did you arrive at that number?
The bottom line is that this is the number that was worked through a number of factors, but working through with the Department of Budget and others, this is what the executive proposal
To basically cover for increased costs in these
to
building things.
restore the purchasing power to make sure that we can get through the existing 5-year capital plan that the legislature and the executive agreed to.
So following that rationale then, how can we justify keeping CHIPS, Pave New York, Bridge New York, touring roads, winter recovery, potholes? How can we justify keeping all those flat? Have these local communities, these local governments not seen the same types of inflationary pressures, and why should we not be increasing these programs?
Well, sir, I would say that over the course of the existing 5-year capital plan, we've seen an enormous investment in local programs across the board. More than $6.3 billion has been provided in our existing 5-year capital plan, and now $1 billion on top of that. And that's just for local highway and bridge programs. That's an increase in this capital plan of over 85% from the previous 5-year capital plan. 85% increase in local programs. What do I mean by local programs? I mean CHIPS. I mean pave our potholes. I mean state touring routes. I mean extreme weather recovery. All of the programs that are accessible to locals. Local governments are actually receiving $1 billion in direct local assistance for roads and bridges, and an additional $350 million increase per year under Governor Kathy Hochul's capital plan is really more than we've ever done before. And I think it's pretty extraordinary. I know that we work very, very closely with the local governments to make sure that they can actually execute on all those dollars. We've made changes in the program to make sure that they've got the flexibility and the payment processes to do everything they can to spend those dollars quickly and effectively. There's a lot of coordination that goes on with the local program.
We have had some increases, but not much last year, and there's none in this year, and I think we need to work as a legislature with the executive to do better on that in this year's budget, and we'll certainly be working towards that. You talked a little bit to some of the other questioning about the standards that you're building roads to at the state for the new heavier electric vehicles. What percentage of our roads, state roads at this point, are actually built to those standards, and what percentage is going to need upgrades to meet those demands of heavier vehicles?
So all of our roads are built to the standards that are specified within our manuals and our engineering instructions. And what we're saying basically is that there doesn't need to be any changes in our current bridge load postings in any of the practices that we actually undertake right now to accommodate electric buses, because based on what we've done, the analysis that we've done, looking at bus weight information and the work that we've performed through our structural engineering team, electric bus weights and the configurations that they fall into are all provided for within our existing standards.